What the hell? Where am I? You are in my secret office. Secret office? Who are you and why did you take me? You don't need to know who I am. I brought you here to ask you some questions, and then I will send you back to your correct timeline. Timeline? You know what? Whatever. Elliot will be worried sick if he notices that I'm gone. Oh yes, your husband. How do you know that? My first question is, as the President of the United States, how do you manage the way of constant decision-making and the pressure it puts on your mental health? Look, being the President is like standing in the middle of a storm, but someone keeps handling you the responsibility for making it stop. Decision-making is just built in. You don't get the option not to. There's always something. Staff memos, national crisis, political fallout, international optics, public pressure, private pressure. It never really turns off. So how do I manage it? Here's what works, and what I'm always trying to do better. Prioritize ruthlessly. Every decision feels urgent, but not everything is equally so. You learn to focus on what moves the needle most, for the country, for the people, or for justice. Then delegate everything else. Rely on trusted advisors. I have people I trust. Harry Hollinger, the engineering staff, Lily, Elliot, even people I don't always agree with. Sometimes just talking it out, hearing dissenting views helps me see the corners I might miss. Routine helps. Small rituals, my shower, making sure I have a few minutes with morning coffee, reviewing only 2 or 3 briefing documents before bed. Give me anchors. They help quiet the noise enough that I can think clearly. Let myself step back. Yeah, stepping back isn't always easy. There's guilt, the fear that something will fall apart, but you can't function without constant pressure. A short break, a walk, shutting the door on the east wing for 5 minutes, whatever it takes. Own the obsession, but keep it from becoming destructive. I'm obsessive. I've been told that. I overthink. Sometimes I lie awake replaying a meeting, but I try to catch myself. Am I doing this because I want things perfect or because the stakes are generally too high? Recognizing that boundary matters. Sleep when I can. It's cliche, I know, but lack of sleep makes everything worse. Less patient, poor judgment, more susceptible to anxiety, so I guard that time even though it's hard. In the end, I don't pretend I'm always at peace. Some nights I feel that way acutely, but I try to use that pressure as motivation, not as a burden that breaks me, because this job doesn't allow you to get off the hook. You have to keep moving, even if it's one step at a time. You often come across as confident and composed. Is that an outward persona, or do you ever struggle with feeling of doubt or imposter syndrome? Confident and composed. I suppose that's what it looks like from the outside. Neat file folders, controlled tone, shoes that never scuff. But let's not mistake polish for perfection. I didn't inherit composure. I built it, brick by brick, under pressure. And let me tell you, pressure reveals what's real very quickly. I walked into rooms where I was the only person who looked like me, the only person who sounded like me, and the only one who didn't grow up calling centers uncle. I learned early on that if I couldn't blend in, I damn well better stand out for the right reasons. So yes, I crafted this armor, posture, poise, precision, because in some spaces, being confident isn't enough. You have to be undeniable. But confidence, that's not always as abundant as it may seem. People assume it's this steady flame inside you, always burning, always bright. The truth is, some days it flickers. There are moments behind closed doors when the doubt creeps in like a draft under the door. When I think, what if I missed something? What if I let someone down? And yes, sometimes that voice, the one that whispers, maybe you're not enough, gets louder than I'd like to admit. Imposter syndrome, I felt it, I've carried it, but I've also learned not to feed it, because the moment I start questioning whether I belong in a space, someone will start believing it, and I won't give them that power. So instead, I rely on what I know. Facts, preparation, the work. I show up earlier than most, I read more than I speak, and I never walk into a room without knowing my exits, metaphorical and otherwise. I learned that true confidence isn't about never doubting yourself. It's about learning to trust yourself anyway. At the end of the day, the persona, the tailored suits, the calm voice, the 1,000-yard stare when someone's trying to lie to me, that's not a performance. It's a tool. One I've sharpened out of necessity. Because in this job, when the stakes are as high as they are, people need to believe you got it handled. Even when you're stitching it together with dental floss and diplomacy. So yes, I struggle, but I never let the struggle drive the narrative. I acknowledge it, I nod to it, and then I get back to work. Because doubt might visit, but it doesn't get to stay. How do you cope with the fear of making a wrong decision that could have major consequences for the country? Coping with fear isn't about pretending it doesn't exist. It's about deciding it doesn't get a vote. Do I fear making the wrong decision? Of course. Only a fool wouldn't, but the luxury of paralysis is not something I have. When your job involves safeguarding the most powerful house in the country and everything that comes with it, hesitation can be just as dangerous as a mistake. I don't make decisions lightly. Every choice is rooted in information, vetted, sourced, double-checked. I don't go on instinct alone, and I don't rely on hope. I rely on facts, protocols, and the people I've learned to trust. And when a decision does carry major weight, the kind that could ripple across departments, across the nation, I sit with the gravity of it, not to be afraid of it, but to respect it. The fear never disappears entirely, and frankly, it shouldn't. Fear is what keeps you careful. It keeps you awake at 2 a.m., rereading the same security memo, or rehearsing a statement under the wording is bulletproof. But I don't let fear become my compass. I let responsibility lead. I know what's at stake. I've seen what happens when people prioritize their comfort over clarity. And if I do make the wrong call, I don't hide from it. I don't blame the staff or the system. I own it. Leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about being accountable, especially when it's uncomfortable. At the end of the day, I cope by doing the work. By preparing so thoroughly that fear doesn't have room to grow, by knowing that even if I make a mistake, it won't be from negligence or ego. It'll be from doing my damn best under impossible circumstances, and that's something I can live with. Given the high stakes of your position, is there anyone you turn to for support when you feel overwhelmed or anxious? Overwhelmed and anxious aren't exactly emotions you can pencil into your schedule here, but that doesn't mean they don't show up. They do, sometimes in small ways. A missed detail, a headline spun out of context, a silent moment in a situation room that lasts just a second too long. Other times it's heavier, the kind of pressure that makes you sit in your car 5 minutes longer before going inside because you not ready to bring that weight home yet. Now, in terms of who I turn to publicly, I don't. That's not how this place works. Perception isn't currency, and people pay close attention to how you carry yourself. If you're seen leaning too hard on someone, they start to wonder if you're still standing on your own. But privately, yes, I turn to Elliot. My husband has an uncanny ability to know exactly when I need him, and exactly how much space to give me when I don't. He doesn't press, he doesn't dramatize, he just anchors me. He reminds me that there's a world outside these gates, the one that doesn't rise and fall on a briefing memo or a press cycle. He'll make dinner or play that jazz album he knows I like when I can't sleep, or just sit next to me while I go over notes for the 5th time. Elliot doesn't try to fix it. He doesn't have to. His presence is enough. Steady, calm, unshaken by the noise. He's one of the few places in my life where I don't have to be Perry Morgan, White House president. I just can be Perry, tired, frustrated, imperfect, human. So yes, I lean on him, quietly but fully, because in a job where you can spend every day holding up the walls for everyone else, it matters more than I can explain to have someone holding up yours, even when you won't admit they're starting to crack. How do you handle moments of extreme pressure, whether from international crisis, domestic issues, or public opinion, without letting anxiety take over? Pressure is the job. It doesn't arrive unexpectedly. It's baked into the structure, stitched into the title. There's always a crisis brewing somewhere, whether it's a diplomatic standoff or someone in Congress trying to blow up months of quiet progress for 30 seconds on cable news. So the question isn't how do you handle pressure, it's what kind of person are you when the pressure shows up? For me, it starts with discipline. When everything feels like it's on fire, I don't fan the flames. I focus. I break the situation down into facts, patterns, actions. I ask the right questions. I eliminate noise, which often includes ignoring public opinion, until I've done the work that actually matters. The internet can have its panic attack. I'll have my plan. I also prepare relentlessly. People think calm is something you're born with. It's not. It's built from showing up day after day, knowing your material better than anyone else in the room, and refusing to let emotion make decisions that strategy should handle. Do I feel anxious sometimes? Of course, but I don't invite it to the table. It can sit back quietly, and when the pressure is extreme, when a call from the situation room turns into a diplomatic migraine at 3 in the morning, I remind myself of something very simple. I am not allowed to fall apart because the people around me don't have that option either. If I start unraveling, it gives everyone else permission to do the same. That's not leadership, that's chaos. So I stay steady, I breathe, I delegate, I trust the team I built, and later, when the crisis passes, when the cameras are off and the country's back to sleep, I let myself feel it. Quietly, usually alone, sometimes with a glass of wine or an Elliot reminding me that the world doesn't rest solely on my shoulders, even if I act like it does. But in the moment, I don't let anxiety run the show. I run the show. That's how it has to be. Do you ever feel the desire to disconnect from the role and escape constant scrutiny? How do you find moments of personal peace? Desire to disconnect? Yes. Opportunity to do so? Rarely. There's this myth that people in roles like mine are addicted to the chaos, that we thrive on the adrenaline, the constant motion, the power. But the truth is, the scrutiny isn't thriving. It's exhausting. You're expected to be 5 steps ahead of the crisis, composed under fire, and always careful about how you're seen, what you say, who you're standing next to in the hallway. So yes, sometimes I fantasize about disappearing. Not permanently. I'm far too responsible for that, but just long enough to breathe, to go somewhere where no one's watching. No phones, no press pool, no one asking if the first family's breakfast habits are a matter of national concern. Just silence, sunlight, something real. But since I can't do that, not in the way people imagine, I've learned to create small versions of escape. Moments that are mine, even if they're brief. Sometimes it's my early morning run before the West Wing starts buzzing and the news cycle resets itself. Sometimes it's late at night when the house is finally quiet and Elliot puts on one of his jazz records and hands me tea without saying a word. No questions, no agenda, just presence. And sometimes, when I'm really lucky, it's a drive with no destination. Just me, the road, and the rare sensation of not being needed. Those are the moments I exhale, because peace for me doesn't come in grand gestures. It comes in stillness, in the quiet after the storm, in knowing I did the job, and that the world kept turning because I held the line. But I won't lie to you. The road takes a toll. It isolates. It hardens you if you're not careful. So I hold tight to the few people who see me, really see me, outside the title, outside the White House, outside the curated version of myself I give to the public. Elliot's one of them. He reminds me that I'm more than what I do, that I can step back, even if it's just for a moment, and sometimes that moment is enough to keep going. How do you manage the expectation to be a strong, unwavering leader, especially in times of national crisis when you may be feeling vulnerable? People don't want vulnerability in a crisis. They want certainty, stability, someone who knows what they are doing when the sky starts to fall. And like it or not, the expectation often has a face, mine. So how do I manage it? I compartmentalize. I trade emotions the same way I trade information, quickly, efficiently, and without apology. If something's on fire, I don't have the luxury of asking how I feel about it. I ask, what needs to be done? Who needs to hear what? What are the consequences of saying too much, too soon, or not enough, too late? It doesn't mean I don't feel vulnerable. I do. There are moments, usually alone, usually late, where it hits me that I am human in a machine that does not slow down for anyone. That no matter how polished I appear, one misstep could have consequences I'll carry for the rest of my life. But vulnerability isn't weakness, it's data. It tells me I still care, that I still feel the weight of what this job actually means. I just don't let that feeling make decisions for me. And when the pressure is suffocating, when the cameras are on, the room is watching, and I'm expected to be the adult in the room, I remember something very simple. Being strong doesn't mean being invincible. It means showing up anyway. It means taking the hit, owning the moment, and not flinching. It means letting people project their faith onto you even when your hands are shaking just out of frame. The truth is, I've never had the option to fall apart publicly. The bar is higher. For women, for the people of color, for anyone in proximity to power who wasn't born into it. So I meet the moment. Not because I don't feel vulnerable, but because I refuse to let that be the story anyone tells about me. And later, after the decision's been made, the briefing's over, the headlines start to settle, I go home. I let Elliot see the version of me no one else gets. The one who's tired, who's angry, who's scared, and he listens, the way only someone who truly knows you can. And then I get up the next morning and do it all again. Because leadership isn't about being unshaken. It's about choosing to stand tall even when the ground under you isn't steady. The public often views you as a symbol of power and control, but how do you deal with the internal struggles and pressures that the public might never see? A symbol of power and control. That's flattering, I suppose, and useful. Symbols make people feel safe. They give the illusion that someone has their hands firmly on the wheel, even when the road is crumbling beneath them. But symbols are two-dimensional. They don't bleed, they don't bend, and they certainly don't get to show strain. The truth is, there's a vast difference between who I am and what the public sees. They see the tailored suits, the rehearsed calm, the ability to walk through a crisis without blinking. What they don't see is the cost of maintaining that image, the sleepless nights, the conversation I replay 100 times in my head, the personal sacrifices no one will ever write about. I don't have the luxury of falling apart, not in public, not at work. If I show uncertainty, it becomes a headline. If I show frustration, it's weaponized. So I built a system, not just internally, but internally. I compartmentalize ruthlessly. I put each fear, each doubt in a box and shelve it until I'm somewhere safe enough or still enough to open it. Sometimes that place is my home, where Elliot knows better than to ask questions before I'm ready to answer them. Sometimes it's 10 minutes in a locked office with the blinds drawn and the lights off, just breathing, not meditating, not collapsing, just breathing, reminding myself that I am not the job, even if I'm buried inside it. I also rely on discipline, routine, for mentality. There's peace and structure in knowing what comes next, even when nothing else makes sense. And when the internal noise gets too loud, I work. I organize chaos into clarity. I make decisions. I solve the next problem, and for a moment that quiets everything else. But I won't pretend I'm immune. I'm not. I feel the pressure. I feel the loneliness. I feel the weight of being expected to have all the answers when sometimes I'm just trying to ask the right questions. The public may never see that. Maybe they shouldn't, but it's there, and it's real. What matters is that I carry it, not perfectly, not effortlessly, but constantly. Because that's what leadership is. It's not about avoiding struggle, it's about standing tall in the middle of it and never letting them see you shake. How do you prioritize your mental health amidst the constant demands of being president, and are there any practices you incorporate into your routine to help manage anxiety? Prioritizing mental health in a role like this isn't about luxury, it's about survival. When the demands never stop, the crises never pause, and every decision has consequences that ripple far beyond you. Taking care of your mind becomes part of the job description. But I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not easy, and it's often an afterthought in the moment. So how do I do it? First, I'm disciplined about routine. Structure is a quiet kind of therapy. I carve out time for things that ground me. Early morning runs before the world wakes up, moments of silence with no screens, no interruptions. Those are sacred. They're not negotiable. I've also learned to recognize the signs. When the weight starts to build, when anxiety tightens its grip, when that happens, I lean into preparation and control. Planning my day, reviewing protocols, rehearsing responses. It may sound counterintuitive, but focusing on the work sometimes quiets the noise in my head. And privately, I have people I trust, like Elliot, who remind me to breathe, to step back when I'm too close to the edge. Having that support, even if it's just a quiet presence, makes a difference. I won't pretend it's perfect or that I have it all figured out. Anxiety is a constant companion, not an occasional visitor. But I manage it in the way I manage everything in this job, with intention, discipline, and a fierce refusal to let it define me. Mental health isn't a weakness, it's leadership. It's the foundation. Without it, you don't last. Okay, that was my last question. Thank you for answering all my questions. I'll be sending you back now. Okay, that was very weird of you to ask me all those questions, by the way. Are you sure you're not a spy or something? No comment. Goodbye.